So my name is Charlene Heydinger. I'm the president of Texas PACE Authority. We are a nonprofit that was created in 2015 to administer PACE programs for local governments, for cities or counties who decide to create them. Who's heard of PACE? All right. Who's in a PACE region? All right. I tell people you really need to hear this about 3 times, so let's consider this our introduction and get moving. So the problem that we are trying to solve is how are we going to pay for it? So you've heard incredible material today on things that local governments can do to help our businesses get going, to revitalize our downtowns, to create economic opportunity, to create growth within the communities we have. The question always comes down for the business community and the nonprofits is, how are we going to pay for it? So in 2013, our Texas legislature created the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. It's really a local adoption model. A city or county can create it. They don't have to. This is the only economic development program you're going to see that does not cost the local government a dime. It does not require local staff to be working on it. That's where Texas PACE Authority steps in. We do all of that. For the local government, we get paid a user fee by the property owners that voluntarily access the program if they want to. Okay, we talked about growing business today, and we talked about how you make money. You make money by selling stuff, more services and stuff. But there's another way that you increase your profits, and that's lowering your costs. We have too many businesses throughout the country dealing with deferred maintenance, wasting a lot of money on high utility bills and repair costs because they're working in buildings, they own buildings that need repair, that need new roofs, new HVACs, they'd like to put solar on them. Basically, through old roofs that are dark, they're absorbing heat. Buildings are like cars. Who's been in a car that doesn't have the window tinting, right? Buildings are the same. And the windows are loose. They don't have proper insulation, so they're air conditioning the sidewalks. All of that takes its toll on the equipment, and equipment doesn't last forever. So sooner or later, as you talked about cities having to repair roads, building owners have to start taking care of their buildings and they can't afford it. So the idea behind PACE is if we can help a business overcome the barriers that prevent it from taking care of its property, if they can do that, then they can lower their costs and increase their net operating income. And what do they do with that net operating income? Hire more people, do more things, grow their wealth. Okay, so the problem is that the equipment I'm talking about, whether it's a roof or an HVAC system or a solar system, or anything that helps that community or that business save water as well, it's expensive. High upfront cost. It will pay for itself with energy efficiency. New equipment is more efficient than old equipment, but it takes forever. It has really long ROI. And anybody who is looking for investors, those investors want their money back in 2 years or less. And they're not going to invest in this equipment. It never meets a hurdle rate. It cannot compete with the core business. Nobody wants to pull money out of the core business to take care of property they already own. PACE helps us get over that. It can only be used for commercial property. Nonprofits are commercial property. Industrial property, that includes agriculture, so think about food processing and other agricultural opportunities, and multifamily, so apartment buildings with at least 5 units. It can only be used for measures that make that property more energy efficient, more water efficient, or used to create power on site. So the legislation is focused on energy and water savings. The measures often also increase resiliency. Windows don't break, roofs don't get ripped off, right? So businesses that lose power in the middle of the storm, they can keep operating if they've got combined heat and power or solar with battery storage. There's employee safety. There's all kinds of things that are wonderful benefits to this. a lot of the same measures that make air conditioning more efficient with some upgrades can also kill viruses, including COVID. So you've got internal air quality safety. There's a lot of really neat things happening in this space where we're focused on energy and water savings. Okay, why are we doing this? Well, we just heard about all these other great hotels and opportunities in mineral wells. Same idea. That building sat empty in downtown Amarillo. Amarillo's relatively flat. There's very little places in Amarillo you could go and not see that eyesore. 25 years, this beautiful historic 1926 office building sat there without windows, boarded up, some of the windows boarded up. It's now a 5-star hotel, fabulous hotel. But the developer of that hotel tried for 15 years to get the capital together to fix that building. He tried condos, he tried all kinds of things. He could never get enough money together. Property Assessed Clean Energy, this PACE program, filled that hole. And it enabled him to take a building that was very hard to redevelop, a cement building, and figure out how to run air conditioning through it. And every light in that building, every light fixture in that building is a 12-volt LED light. He's going to save a fortune on his energy bill. But he used PACE to buy that building. He filled a hole in his capital stack. So what happens? You get an architect, an MEP will say, okay, here's your plan for your energy efficient, beautiful building. The owner looks at it after he or she recovers from their stroke, says, go redesign it because this is what I can afford. And what comes out in what they call value engineering, which is the worst phrase in the world, they cut out everything that people don't see. They cut out all the energy and water efficiency, and they condemn that building forever to higher operating costs, which hurts everybody, okay? So PACE plugged that hole for him. Amarillo not only got rid of an eyesore, but it got 55 permanent new jobs in what was a shell, and that shell went back on the tax rolls. Okay, so here's a visual for you. Banks don't like what these are basically equipment loans. They're very risky for lenders and investors because they don't know how long that company is going to be in business. They don't know how long that company is going to own that building, and they can't come and take the air conditioning system if you don't pay. So what a local community does in creating a property assessed clean energy region is they allow a private business or a nonprofit to negotiate with a private lender. The local community is not coming up with this money. This isn't bonds. It's a great fit for all the other things you heard about today. But the lender and the owner cut their own deal for this kind of financing. It's 100% financing upfront. And we won't approve the project on behalf of the local community unless the savings on the project exceed the cost of the project. So what happens is that lender says, well, you know, I don't know how long you're going to be in business, so I want to get paid back in 5 years or less. We call that the Tower of Pain. That's that yellow cash flow hit that you have to pay off before you ever get access to the savings that you're generating from this project. All the PACE program does is knock that tower over. So you've got a longer period to pay back your financing, and you get instant access to the utility savings and your repair savings and other savings in order to make those payments. So we've reduced the risk to the lender. So the lenders say, well, you know what? Because of your community, my collateral can be a senior lien on your property instead of loaning against your company profits. And so I am willing to loan money for 20 years. The statute says you can have an assessment as long as the projected life of the equipment. So if the equipment's 15 years before it dies, you can get a PACE assessment loan for 15 years. So by reducing the risk for the private lenders, you get 100% upfront financing that will be cash flow positive during the life of that loan. They literally pay for themselves. So you don't have to sit down and convince your investor or your board president or whoever that they should build one less line or hire one less person or cancel their marketing budget because they can't, the air conditioning system just cannot be repaired anymore. Now you can keep your business running and get these measures done. And because people tend to borrow a little bit more than they actually need, or they borrow it over a longer period of time than they actually need, they end up actually putting income into the building while they're paying these assessments back. We started in 2015 with our first county. We just had a couple more join, so we are now at 74 local PACE programs. We reached 68% of the population, and as you can see, we've grown recently in this area. Grayson County is one of the most recent counties to create the program. Thank you, William, one of the great cheerleaders. And Gainesville has the program as well. So if you are in one of these communities, I can tell you this is the greatest program nobody's heard of, and we are looking for opportunities. I would love to talk to your Rotary Club, your chambers, whoever needs to hear about this program. And we can do that. And if you're in a community that doesn't have a program yet, we'd love to work with you to make that happen. Local governments will create this program, one, when they understand it, which is not a one conversation opportunity. Two, their staffs have vetted the program and the documents because this sounds too good to be true. And three, the local business community is asking for it. As nice as I am, they're not going to create it for me. They'll create it for you. Okay. So we are this little nonprofit. We've promised everybody we will lower our costs as we grow in scope and project closings in order to serve small business. We have to have a low overhead, which means we've got to have a high volume, and that's finally starting to happen as people discover the program and it's being used. And you can see it's being used by just about every sector. And we're really only getting started. This is the most conservative, creative program that there could be. It's private property rights, utilizing your property to get where you need to be. It's completely voluntary, and it uses private financing. But it fits with every other tool you heard about today. And it promotes every concept of local wealth growth that you heard about today. Okay, so we've done 192 million, I think. We're closing another project in Austin later this week. The smallest project is 68,000. The largest is 24 million. They're rural, they're urban. And when the legislature passed this in 2013, we were in the middle of the drought. Folks in Wichita Falls were drinking their wastewater. Everybody was freaking out about that. Now everybody in El Paso does it, and we're probably all going to be doing it sooner or later. Fortunately, they clean it. But we committed to serve all of Texas, and I'm honored to be here today to be able to try and help fulfill that. Okay, so your local government creates the program. We are quality control, little umpire. I'm the church lady when it comes to making sure that everything's buttoned up, because the local government enforces these the same way they enforce past due debt. So it's our job up front to make sure that everything is done for success. Governor Perry wouldn't have signed this statute if an independent third-party engineer wasn't required to come in and validate that what the contractors are telling everybody the savings are going to be. This is a really buttoned down, careful program. It's a little more extra work, doesn't work for every building, but where it works, it's magic. The property owner, so that black line, we're on the government side. We're only doing this because local governments don't have the resources to do it in-house. So we do it in a transparent, ethical way. We're not providing the funding. We're not providing the engineering. We're not developing these projects because we're the umpire that oversees them. And it would be conflict of interest to be on both sides of that equation. So we want the property owners to have all the power. Yes? Industrials are absolutely eligible. So that little commercial, industrial, and multifamily. Did I miss industrial office. Oh, these are the projects that have been done so far. We've done one small industrial. It's kind of like what we've done so far in our project diversity. Once industrials figure this out, it'll be Katie bar the door for them. Okay, so the property owner has all the power. We want the property owner to be able to do business the way they're used to doing business with the people they want to do business with. We just button it up and make sure that everything is designed for success and meets the requirements. Most of the time, the regulations would be created by the state, by a regulatory agency. But since this is a local government program, we have 254 counties, almost 1,200 cities. If everybody went their own way, this would be expensive and confusing, and it wouldn't go anywhere. So a group of 130 volunteers took a year to design what we affectionately call PACE in a Box, and that's the model program that these 74 local governments are using. In order to create a program, local government needs to understand it. Once they're ready to go, it takes 2 meetings. Because PACE in a Box is a uniform program, all of the documents a local government needs are modeled here. It takes me about an hour to make them specific to a local government. And so this is really, we did everything we could to make this an easy touch for local governments and to reduce their risk, which is why everybody thinks it's too good to be true. So we actually have a little calculator on our website that you can use to model your own program at a high level. This property was owned by Italians who are interested in it as a cash flow cow. Like every other 1980s office building, the air conditioning's dead. The HVAC, the lighting is hot. And so they were not going to touch it. The poor property manager was going crazy because tenants were leaving because the air conditioning was so unreliable. He went to them and said, look, there's this program in Houston. If you'll let me access it, it's not going to cost you a dime. We're going to put more money into the building, but please let me replace this air conditioning system. So they did air conditioning and LED lighting. It was $1.3 million. They got utility incentives. So to hammer this point, get every other incentive out there. If you have access to facade grants, utility incentives, USDA REAP grants, everything you can get, this fits beautifully with every other incentive out there. TERS, opportunity zones, new market tax credits, historic tax credits. We're seeing it all put together with PACE. So you can see from the blue line, they were cash flow positive from day one. If they'd had to pull the $1.3 million out of their own pockets, it would have taken them over 10 years to break even. Everybody says, well, why don't they just go get a loan? Remember what I said about loans being 5 years or less to minimize the risk of the lender? You add that interest over that short period of time, and you make your ROI even longer. That's why nobody does it. That's why we have deferred maintenance. This is our biggest project to date, the Butler Brother Building, right across the street from Dallas City Hall. So if you look at the blue capital stack, they were $22 million short. They were going to take out a 15% mezzanine loan. Learned about PACE. At the time, it was 6.13. They're now in the 5s. Swapped out the mezzanine loan, took out a $24 million PACE loan as part of that capital stack, and they've reduced their weighted average cost of capital by almost 2%. So people, this is what the Barfield building did in Amarillo. They're using PACE in their capital stacks to buy and underwrite the renovations of these buildings. This is the way to bring these beautiful historic buildings back to life. Instead of having somebody just go build a new building in the ring around your town, this is the way that these old buildings can make financial sense in bringing them back. Okay, so we do a lot of nonprofits. This is kind of exciting. We have solar on the New Birth Baptist Church in Fort Worth. But what community, what congregation do you know has the money to replace their HVAC systems or their lighting? They're some of the most inefficient buildings out there. We can help them. And we can do it without having to pull their mission dollars away from them. Okay, so this one, don't panic. This is the Continental Gin building, historic Cotton Gin in Deep Ellum in Dallas. And it is going to be offices, restaurant, so mixed use. But what I wanted to show you is that PACE was used with TIF, state historic tax credits, federal historic tax credits, and opportunity zone funding. So we're seeing this, if people are putting these stacks together, they just need to understand about PACE. But we do small buildings too. So that Elgin General Store, that's a feed store, solar on the roof. The owner was just tired of losing power with his credit card machines, and so he wanted a solar and battery storage. It's the first USDA REAP grant, PACE, and utility incentive. So this $200,000 solar project used $120,000 in PACE, and the rest of it was grants, just cash from the utility and the USDA. And then we've done a small office building, single owner-owned office building in Austin. Malls. So we did this whole slew of mall renovations, updates, mostly parking lot lighting across Texas. Most recent malls we've done are total redevelopments of the malls, repurposing them to do other things. That is in Temple, Texas. It's going to be apartments and 7 permanent jobs in what is a dangerous shell in downtown Temple. This is the kind of stuff that makes this all worthwhile for me. The decade of bringing this to life. This is where the joy of this. Navarro County, Corsicana. Navarro County's economic development Scott gets a call from the Levy Company in Missouri. Scott, we got PACE in Missouri. We know about it. Our customers expect us. This is really early ESG. Our customers expect us to be energy efficient. They demand it. We're moving most of our business to Texas. You got an empty Heydinger sewing plant. Men don't really wear suits all that much anymore, and that plant had been empty for 10 years. The Levy Company makes cheerleading uniforms, sports uniforms, perfect for them. So the Levy Company said, you create a PACE program, we'll buy that building. They did, and Corsicana got 60 permanent jobs and a building that went back on the tax rolls. The statute didn't really anticipate new construction. It prohibits the use of this program on developed lots. This was our first post-Hurricane Harvey. It's clearly new construction. And the developers came to us and said, we want to use PACE for this green field. And I looked at it and I said, I hate to tell you, but that's a sand dune. And the statute says we can't use PACE on undeveloped lots. They came back to me 3 weeks later and said, we've looked at our plans. We're doing 450 units in the first phase, another 450 units in the second phase. We have a maintenance facility, 6-stall garage. We're building it anyway because it's going to have a bathroom, it's going to have lighting and water, and we're doing that instead of renting a construction truck. It's staying there. It's a permanent building. I'm going to build that building first. I'm going to go get a CO from the county, and I want to use PACE for the rest of it. And we said, once you do that, it's no longer an undeveloped lot. And so we've actually seen PACE used several times now for tear downs and rebuilds. Once a lot's developed, it's pretty much developed. And so if we can establish that it's been developed, the statute is met, and we're able to do new construction. Anybody remember the Falstaff Brewery on Galveston Island? It's going to be a hotel about 2 blocks from where the cruise ships land. Another 1980s building in Waco, air conditioning and lighting. Just every 1980s office building. Here's a beautiful Waco office building, downtown, apartments, probably right along that really cool walkway that you saw earlier today, because it's that close to the silos. XTO moved its oil and gas headquarters to Houston. Fort Worth had this beautiful office building. It's now an incredible hotel. Another 1980s office building, also in Tarrant County. This is the one I love, and this is the one I want to talk to you about today. This is also in Waco. Somebody took 3 of these downtown buildings, combined them to make offices, used PACE for this 510 collective on Austin Avenue in Waco, downtown. So again, with the Elgin General Store, with this 510 collective, we're not just looking for the giant projects. We committed to serve all of Texas and all of Texas businesses. And in order to really make this happen across Texas, we've got to get local lenders to become PACE lenders. As you know, banks don't always do new quickly, but we will get there. And the Elgin General Store and another project in Waco, the Containery, were both funded by local banks. So we're starting to have those conversations. I'm excited about it. Thank you for your time today. There's a ton of resources out there. I don't know if we're sharing these slides later, but this is a win-win for everybody.